Tuesday, May 6, 2025 on a Tuesday. What up, y'all? Say what's up as you come in the chat. Hit that like button. Tell me where you watch it from. Give me a minute to pull these things up for you guys real quick. Which music I want to play first? You know I want this. So that was a Toronto Sun, and then okay, let's go with that one. Let's see where he's right here. 356, 412. Let me see if we cover the same thing here.
Mark Carney survived.
He did survive his meeting with President Trump. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the live stream, guys. It is May 6th. Yes, because the 5th, yesterday we talked about Diddy's trial 2025 on a Tuesday, guys. Welcome to Cozy Corner TV. I am your host, Karen Smith, call me Q. And we are on the corner. We're on the corner. What's up, y'all? So, welcome to the live stream, guys. We got a couple clips to cover today. I didn't pick many out. I mean, I probably got like 5 or 6. That might sound like many, but they're all short. Just like yesterday, we had a couple of short clips. Just because we're following
maintaining a
fast news right now, a couple of things happening. So trying to keep up with, Diddy's case starting, culture-wise, right? Thing happening with Shannon Sharp, and keeping up with that. And then also just kind of new Prime Minister of Canada is in place. So keeping up with that, everything going on with the tariff. So trying to make sure I'm keeping up with the things that are most important. Like, the Democrats harassing John Fetterman as if they have anybody to put up now and they don't. And they're harassing John Fetterman. So it's things like that, guys, that we're trying to keep up with here. So let me pull this stuff up for you guys in the chat. Say what's up as you come in. Tell me where you watch it from. Robert White. That's my buddy. What's up, Robert? You haven't called me in 2 weeks. Yeah, you thought I wouldn't say it on live stream, right? You haven't called me in 2 weeks. You better get your life right. All right. Let's see where else. So I had here Fetterman right there. Yeah, it was 60 Minutes I wanted to watch, but it was something with the polls. What was this? Where did I find this at? Let me see something here. History. Yeah, right here, Mark Penn. So we got Bill O'Reilly too. I'm gonna react to Bill O'Reilly tonight. I react to Bill O'Reilly pretty often. And it's probably no surprise to you guys who actually do YouTube content. But that's why most of my audience is older. So probably like 46% of my audience is from like 44 to 65 and plus, which is wild because I'm like, what? Now, at one point in my life, I did hang out with older people, and I still do now, but I wasn't like doing the best things when we were hanging out. Like I tell my mentor sometimes this at work, and certain people that I'm pretty close with. When I used to hang out with older people, I'm not gonna lie, it would be because a lot of the times I would probably be like smoking weed with them when I was when I was younger. So that's why I would hang out with them. And if somebody's wondering like, well, why didn't you smoke with people that were your age? It's like because they were dumb and I didn't want to go to jail. So it was beneficial to smoke with people that were like 55 because one, I heard really great stories, and two, I didn't end up in prison. So that's why, a lot of my years younger, every time I would smoke, I smoked with older people. And it makes sense, right? I've sat with older people. Wisdom is something I've always craved. I've always asked the Lord to please help me to be wise before I'm like 60. Don't ask me why I picked the age 60. It was just a prayer I said when I was younger. So I would always ask the Lord to make me wise. And so when I sit back and I I kind of see some of the things that's happening. It's just interesting to me. It's very interesting. Which means, and that's also encouraging for me because then when I'm doing things like this on my channel, because my channel has more older people on it, I know that I'm actually getting grace. Whereas with younger people and millennials, they would
Hey
be like,
homeowners, are you tired of...
they would be like, nope, this took 4 seconds. I'm out of here. Like, my attention span is not here anymore. I have too much trauma to sit still for 4 seconds. And now I'm triggered because my dad used to make me do this when I was younger. That's just what I'm going to deal with my generation and the generation younger than me. So I can appreciate that I have an older audience because then when I do things like take my time, they're not losing it. You know, older people have this thing called like patience. At least they should. A lot of them do, but not all. But I literally could have been like, you know what? I'm gonna just like not start my live till like 8 something and look for this. But I'm like, no, I'm on here with you guys every single day. You guys watch me look stuff up all of the time on here. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get on there and I'm gonna look it up right now because I have something to do while it's still daylight out. So I have to jump on here. Where is it? Okay, you know what? I think it was this one.
Watch this.
If it's not, I can always just go off the cuff with it because Cliff always has good clips, but that's cool. All right, guys, so let's go over what we're going to digest a little bit today. First up, we got the Toronto Sun. Shout out to them. I often say on the channel that Canada is my second most watched country to the United States on my channel, so I do my best to cover a good amount of Canadian news. We got Lightly Unleashed. Carney survives first visit with Trump. So the Toronto Sun covers this. Today, President Trump hosted Prime Minister Carney at the White House and the Oval Office. I have, how many are there? Is it one? I grabbed a clip. Well, this is the second clip. So I grabbed 2 clips from that meeting. There was a longer standing video. They have one that's about 36 minutes long. I'm thinking about throwing that on live tomorrow when we get on. But I wanted to I picked 2 specific clips that I wanted to look at today with you guys. So we'll go over that one, Carney survives first visit with Trump, and that's Toronto Sun. And then we'll go over to Face the Nation. Shout out to them. Carney says Canada won't be for sale ever. Trump responds, never say never. This is where you gotta just love having like a G president. Like at this point, this is where I'm just telling you guys, we went over this as somebody who has served in the Marine Corps. I've said this over and over again. You do not want your leader to be weak. You don't want it. And the fact that a prime minister could say, hey, listen, buddy, our country's never going to be for sale. You know, we know Donald Trump, right? We know the American attitude. How does Donald Trump snap back? He's like, hey, never say never. In other words, everything's got a price, right? Everything, most things we can make a deal on. We shouldn't say everything has a price. Everything shouldn't have a price. Your soul should not have a price, even though it's not yours to sell. That's another topic for another story. And then for another day. And then we're gonna move over to Fox News. Report staffers are worried about Fetterman. See, you know, when I saw this headline, I was troubled. And I forgot who, shout out to Brandon Lehman. I was scrolling through my YouTube channel, and you know, all of the channels that you follow, if they've already posted or they've already did some type of post or uploaded a video, you can see it. And I saw Brandon Lehman cover something about John Fetterman. I didn't watch the video, so shout out to you, Brandon. I'll get around to it at some point because I do try to keep up with you. But I think it said something like John Fetterman is out or something like that. So it just kind of caught my attention. So I was like, okay, let me put John's name in here and see if anything's popping, you know, for the last couple of days. And it's like, sure enough, you got to see all this stuff like, oh, Democrats are worried about John Fetterman, and John Fetterman's not the man I used to know. And I'm just like, give me a break here. So, you know, I know what they're doing. I'm just going to go ahead and say, Democrats, cut it out. Cut it out right now. Don't do this, because we went over this so many times. Like, who are you guys going to put up if it's not John Fetterman? Now, I get it. Like, some people right now who might not know that much about John Fetterman might be saying like, who is that? And I saw the 2028 potential nominees, right? So I don't think John Fetterman was actually on there. Man, I don't even remember how long ago I did that live stream. It was probably like 2 months ago, maybe 2 months, 2.5 months ago, maybe 3. So I don't even remember. I don't remember John Fetterman being on there, but I remember Stephen A. Smith being on there, and I remember AOC being on there, and I remember Gavin Newsom being on there, and I remember Josh Shapiro being on there, but I don't think I remember John Fetterman being on there. And I have no idea how you guys think. And this is no shout out to Stephen A. because Stephen A. went public himself to say he doesn't believe he's that qualified to do the job of president. But for us to think that Stephen A. has a great chance and John Fetterman doesn't, this is how I know that you guys are not paying attention to politics. And if Stephen A. goes up, that's fine. Like, right? Technically speaking, I didn't even get to cover it on the live. But I think I did actually. But I don't know if I covered that particular part. But President Trump, like, low-key gave Stephen A. Smith a, like, low-key mini endorsement. So if you're like, well, how did he do that? It's like, they Bill O'Reilly, Chris Cuomo, and Stephen A. Smith, they hosted a town hall where they had President Trump on there. He was on there with them for about 25 minutes, answered some questions, formal but casual at the same time, small audience. So Trump got some reaction to some of his answers, and I believe at this point they might have been ending the live stream or close to ending the town hall. And Bill O'Reilly says to President Trump, "Hey, Stephen A. Smith, he may run for president, or he's thinking about running for president. So do you have any advice for him?" And President Trump's like, like, Stephen's a good guy. I've always enjoyed watching him. He's entertaining, which is important. And he says the Democrats don't have a chance. And then he says that I'm good at, like, pretty much eyeing candidates. He's like, and I've said for the longest time, these guys don't have a chance. So, Stephen's going to run. I like him. I'd like to see him run, and I'm like, yo, that's crazy that Trump just dropped that endorsement like that on a Democrat, and out of all of them, Stephen A. Smith. But he's not your, what is the word I want to say here? God, I hate when I'm tired, you guys. He's not your ordinary politician, He's not your normal polished politician. So he's different, he has an edge to him because he's not in politics at all. As a matter of fact, he's like a sports commentator. But Donald Trump has paved this way, and Bill O'Reilly has talked about this amongst other news commentators, that Donald Trump has sort of paved this way for God, there's literally a word I want to use, and I'm having a brain fart. I can't stand when that happens. Whatever, guys, it'll come to me. But not your typical candidate, right? So Donald Trump has kind of paved this way for not your typical politician to basically be able to run and also have the chance of legitimately winning the election. So this was interesting to see. I got to go back and see. I think I have the video on my iPad because I think my wife downloaded it for me. So I'm going to see if I have that video, and I'm actually probably going to actually crop that. Maybe drop, because there's another short in there I wanted to do for you guys that I haven't gotten to yet. Because you guys need to see that. Because I was like, whoa, is that an endorsement or is that an endorsement? I'm not saying it was official, but it seemed like a mini one. And then we're going to switch gears and go over to Bill O'Reilly. Mark Penn on the business of polling. So Bill O'Reilly's going to go over some new polls that he actually got from Mark Penn, a person he's been associated with for some time. And he's going to go over just the business of polling and have Mark Penn kind of explain, how it works, where do they get their constituents from, how the numbers, how they gather them, and things of that sort. And then we will finish off with Jasmine Crockett. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is under fire for dangerous rhetoric. She wants fame, says Fox News. So she was she did a commencement speech. I forgot what school she was at. I think she said something about Montgomery. Let me see something. Jasmine Crockett, commencement speech, 2025, Montgomery Bowling College. Oh, Togolu College. Okay, so that's where she was at. I'm not gonna lie, guys. She went under fire for this rhetoric. I watched it. Okay, so in the background you have some alumni back there, like you always do at the graduations. In their face, I'm not gonna say it looks dejected. I'm not gonna say it looks worried. Let's go with perplexed, right? Like their faces kind of look like, where is she going with this, or like, is she really saying this? So I wasn't too happy to see that. So we'll take a look at that, and then last but not least, we'll end the live stream with a clip from Cliff Buell. Shout out to Cliff, YouTube content creator that focuses on Christian content. I love Cliff. I'm a Christian, and because of Cliff, I get to end my live stream almost every night with his content. So if you guys get a chance, go over to his channel and show Cliff some love. With that being said, 15 minutes into the live stream. Let's jump in, guys. Here we go. Lively Unleashed. Carney survives first visit with Trump. Let's listen.
Mark Carney survives his meeting with Donald Trump in the Oval Office. Hi, I'm Brian Lilly, political columnist for the Toronto Sun. You could say he survived barely. It started out very complimentary. One leader saying good things about the other. Trump saying that Carney ran a great campaign. Carney saying that Trump is a transformational president that he wants to work with. And then the two of them got down to talking about business. Things were still going fine, and then the 51st state came up. At first, it was handled well. Trump speaking in ways that he hadn't before, saying, well, you're going to have both sides willing to do this, and Carney responding.
No, well, I still believe that, but it takes two to tango, right? But no, I do. I mean, I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things. And there would be a lot of advantages.
Now, that was closer to the beginning of the meeting. Towards the end, they talked about trade irritants. Trump had gone on a lot of rants about China and other countries. And then the issue with the 51st state came up again. A journalist asking a question of, will you respect Canada if they say no? And Carney having to jump in and be a bit more forceful.
If Canadians don't want it, would you respect that?
Sure, I would. But this is not necessarily a one-day deal. This is over a period of time they have to make that decision. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may. Respectfully, Canadians' view on this is not going to change on the 51st state. Secondly, we are the largest client of the United States in the totality of all the goods. So we are the largest client of the United States. We have a tremendous auto sector between the two of us, and the changes they've made have been helpful. 50% of a car that comes from Canada is American. That's not like anywhere else in the world. And to your question about, is there one thing? No, this is a bigger discussion. There are much bigger forces involved. And this will take some time and some discussions, and that's why we're here, to have those discussions. And that is represented by who's sitting around the table.
At that point, Trump went on a 2-minute rant at the end of this, talking about how we don't want Canada's cars, we don't want their energy or any of their products, we don't need them. 2 minutes of him ranting about that, talking about Governor Trudeau insulting the country, saying that they subsidize us to the tune of $200 billion, which is not true. Carney looking like he wanted to interject, he couldn't get a word in, and at the end, Trump just said, all right, thank you very much, and the media was ushered out. He clearly, Carney that is, clearly looked uncomfortable with where Trump had left that, but you know what? It's probably for the best that he didn't get to push back, or perhaps there would have been a Zelensky-type moment, something that Trump had alluded to and said, we won't get to that, but it truly could have come if he got more pushback from Carney, pushback that would have been warranted, given what Trump was saying.
Yeah,
but
that's crazy.
What you have to negotiate with Trump
now
is sometimes to swallow your
pride
pride and get through to the private portion of the meeting where you can actually get things done. Let him be a braggart in public and then find a common ground deal behind closed doors. It'll take some time to know the full effect of this meeting, but Carney was putting himself in danger having this confab with Trump in front of the full media. We saw lots of insults towards Justin Trudeau. We saw an insult towards Chrystia Freeland, who Trump wouldn't name, but Canada escaped unscathed in the end. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment down below. Share this on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
Shout out to you guys. I mean, unscathed, I guess. I just don't know if I would agree with that, Brian, because it's like, You know, I don't like that. Like, I don't like it. Just like when he said, when President Trump said to Mark Carney, I think you ran a great election. I'm like, yeah, after you threw some slight election interference in there, like that, which was crazy. Like, he didn't even have to throw much. He just had to say, I'd rather work with a liberal. And the polls went drop. Like, literally, if you guys were paying attention to it, you saw it. And this is what's crazy because it seems like, I'm not gonna say only the Canadians knew this, but like clearly people in America who have friends, family, loved ones in Canada, they were paying attention to this. But I'm sitting there and I'm watching this and I'm like, dude, really? Like President Trump literally just says like, I'd rather deal with a liberal and the polls drop like that. I thought that was insane when I saw that. I'm like, well, clearly President Trump is more revered in Canada than we thought. Like at one point, I thought the whole country hated him, right? Because they were like, "Oh, we don't want Pierre Poilievre because he's a mini Donald Trump," right? So I thought they hated Trump, but it's interesting how the minute that President Trump said he'd rather deal with a liberal, the conservatives were leading, and then they all of a sudden weren't. And I've already said my piece about what I thought about that. We're not gonna revisit that, right? Because I'm not saying I'm going to get triggered. I'm just saying I don't want to be annoyed. So we're not going to revisit that. But I thought it was some slight low-key election interference. I'm just saying. Like, it doesn't always have to be like this big hoax or this big check or money thing that's election interference. I just felt like that President Trump knows right now, like, he knows what he's moving in, and he knows it's powerful. So the fact that he was able to just come out and be like, "Yeah, I'd rather deal with a liberal," and the polls just dropped like that, I was like, President Trump, that's crazy to do. That was insane. All right, guys. So next up on the menu, Carney says Canada won't be for sale ever. Trump responds, "Never say never." That's our president. Let's hear what he had to say.
Canada and the United States. Would you like to see a British trade deal with Canada?
I would love that. Look, I have a lot of respect for this man, and I watched him come up in a sense through the ranks when he wasn't given much of a chance, and he ran a really great campaign. He did a really great debate. I think that debate was very helpful. I was going to raise my hand. I don't know if that's good or bad. I shouldn't say that. That might hurt you. But no, he ran a really great election, I thought. And yeah, something could happen. Something could happen. Yeah, please. Concession?
Yes.
Friendship.
That's not a concession.
No, we're going to be friends with Canada. Regardless of anything, we're going to be friends with Canada. Canada is a very special place to me. I know so many people that live in Canada. My parents had relatives that lived in Canada, my mother in particular. And I love Canada. I have a lot of respect for the Canadians. Wayne Gretzky, how good, the great one. You happen to have a very, very good hockey player right here on the Capitals, who I have a lot of respect. He is a big, tough cookie too. Just broke the record. And he's a great guy, and we had the team here, and I got to know a lot of the players. But now Canada is a very special place. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, I'd like to get your response to this too. Mr. President, you have said that Canada should become the 51st state.
Yeah. No. Well, I still believe that, but it takes two to tango, right? But no, I do. I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things. And there would be a lot of advantages, but it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, as a real estate developer, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said, that's the way it was meant to be. But, I do feel it's much better for Canada.
Yeah, Mark Carney does look.
We're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway, because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem. But I think It would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace, and you visited as well.
That's true.
Having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. We have done that in the past, and part of that, as the president just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership. And I'll say this as well, that the president has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it.
And they have, well, I must say, Canada is stepping up the military participation because Mark knew, they were low and now they're stepping it up, and that's a very important thing. But never say never. Never say never.
I think it's an amazing gift to give someone. I don't think there should be any hesitancy.
He had to make sure he snuck it in there. The way that he did that, he literally answered. He literally makes sure he makes a statement, and then he goes, "Never say never," because when Mark Carney was speaking, Donald Trump starts to smile. So you see Mark Carney kind of say, like after Donald Trump says "never say never," you see Mark Carney kind of say "never" like 3 different times in 3 different positions. But he doesn't really go on record to be as boisterous as what I think Pierre would have been, and been like, no, it's never. He wasn't that confident, which that's something that I wholeheartedly believe Pierre would have reacted like. Now I've watched this man since before Canada's election started, so I felt like at some point when President Trump said I'd rather deal with a liberal, I said, as an American understanding what President Trump is trying to accomplish, I could see why he would say that. In my opinion, to some degree, sure, Mark Carney's probably a lot easier. Pierre probably would have put up a bigger fight. That's just my opinion. But I just felt like there was some interference there. But I like the way that President Trump still slid that in there. He's like, never say never. All right, guys, so we're switching gears over to Fox News. Report, staffers are worried about Fetterman. So here we are to John Fetterman, which is what I was talking about, where I'm really not happy with this. But let's take a listen to see what they're actually saying about him.
A new expose raising eyebrows about Democratic Pennsylvania Senator.
It says New York all by himself. John Fetterman insists he is in good health, but staffers past and present say they no longer recognize the man they once knew. Oh, Lord. Really? That could have been because he lost weight. That could have been because he's in a suit. See, people are annoying.
Senator John Fetterman, according to his staff, Fetterman was avoiding the regular checkups advised by his doctors. He drove his car so recklessly that staff refused to ride with him. He also bought a gun. Fetterman was isolated, had damaged personal relationships, and was shedding staff, and they expect more staffers to depart. So,
oh my goodness, they act like they don't live in America. What is the problem with this? What is the problem with this? He drove his car. Okay. Fetterman was Fetterman's former chief of staff raised his concerns about his health. So his former chief of staff. So this is somebody he fired. Fetterman was, according to Jentelson, avoiding the regular checkups advised by his doctors. He drove his car so recklessly that staff refused to ride with him. He had also brought a gun. Fetterman was isolated. I'm like, okay, so he bought a gun. He lives in a country where he has the right to bear arms. Like, what is the problem with him buying a gun? So what are they doing? They're saying he drove his car so recklessly, people refused to drive with him, and he bought a gun, and he was isolated, and what next, and what next? And then he killed himself? It's like, come on, bro. This is what the Democrats...
Fetterman was isolated, had damaged personal relationships, and was shedding staff, and they expect more staffers to depart. So what gives with the takedown? Maybe our next guest knows. She's been covering Fetterman from day one. Pittsburgh-based columnist Selena Zito joining us now.
So columnist Selena Zito is important because, like he said, she's been covering Fetterman since day one. So really since before he was in the spotlight, which technically he never really has been. I think the biggest spotlight we've probably seen John Fetterman in is when shortly after President Trump won the election that he flew down to Mar-a-Lago and they had a meet. And it went really well. Like President Trump had good things to say about John Fetterman. John Fetterman had positive things to say about President Trump. And I believe that that's when we probably saw John Fetterman as some of the most light. I don't think this was very national, but I know when he kind of agreed to like the trans athlete thing in Pennsylvania, that kind of made headlines about him agreeing to that. But what she's about to say about him is very true. Like he's pretty much been this way for a very long time. Most people think that maybe because of depression or things he's dealt with recently is the reason why he doesn't like to get dressed up or wear suits or sweatpants, and it's like, no, it was even before that. She goes on to say, like, if people are upset with him now and they're not embracing who he is now, she's like, that goes to show me that they never knew who John Fetterman was because he's being who he always was. So let's take a listen.
Pittsburgh-based columnist Selena Zito joining us now. My friend, listen, this sounds like somebody has it out for this guy, and I'm just curious, is it because he's trending more centrist, or is there more to it than that?
Well, I suspect, I mean, I'm not inside the head of the staffers that were participated in this story, but I think that these staffers didn't have a fundamental understanding of who John Fetterman was before he had his stroke and was recovering from that and his depression. And you know, leading up to 2022, Fetterman has always been a very independent elected official, whether he was mayor or lieutenant governor of the state. He's never really been the darling of his party. If I remember correctly, his party's never even endorsed him when he's run for office. The only time I ever saw John Fetterman not himself was in 2022 when he was running, and he was obviously recovering from a stroke and to his own admission, recovering from depression. But if they're shocked and surprised by who he is today, then they never really knew the real John Fetterman. This is a guy who has emerged after leaving Walter Reed for treatment as himself. This is who he's always been. He's never been the darling of the Democrats. Nope. He's always been his own person. And I think they're the ones that are stunned by it. And I think it's interesting that they decide to do a story about him and disparage him in the way that they did in this story.
Yeah, if you haven't had a chance to see it, folks at home, let me share the headline. This, of course, is from New York Magazine. It reads, all by himself. John Fetterman insists he's in good health, but staffers past and present say they no longer recognize the man they once knew. 15 seconds to go. Selena, does this amount to anything, or is this much ado about nothing?
This is very DC and not very Pennsylvania. He enjoys a robust support and approval rating among.
That's the crazy thing too, because in Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, he has a good approval rating amongst Democrats and Republicans. So that's why, like, when I saw this headline, I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, what are these Democrats doing now? But you know, I'm inclined to go with her when she says she feels like this is more DC than Pennsylvania. Yeah, I'm around Pennsylvanians a lot. Like, I interact with them a good deal. And the ones that I've talked to about John Fetterman, they don't have a problem with him. They like him as well. I'm not going to lie. Some of the husbands who I talk to, their wives don't like the fact that, you know, maybe he never gets dressed up or he always wears a sweater or shorts or sweatpants. I think it's hilarious. But I mean, I get why some people, you know, whatever. They're going to say he's not being professional. And I mean, are you being professional if you're stealing from the government? Of course you're not. But I guess because you wear suits every day, that's professional. I digress. I don't really care about John Fetterman not wearing suits. I think he's fine.
support and approval rating among Democrats and Republicans in the state. And so I think this is a DC thing and not a Pennsylvania thing.
I think for people who don't know that state the way you do, the way I do, there's an awful lot of red in that state. It's not as bluish as some people like to make out. I think it's a fairly balanced state. John Fetterman enjoys a great deal of support among red and blue voters. So
I'm not gonna lie. Now, Philadelphia might not be very red, but there are a good deal of people that I do know in Pennsylvania and interact with, and yeah, they do come off very conservative. Even if some of them say that they have been Democrats in the past or they used to be, they come off very conservative.
and blue voters. Selena Zito, great to see you, my friend. Appreciate that. Have a great weekend.
I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brett.
Yeah, that's I just think that is that's so interesting. But I'm glad that, you know, Selena Zito's able to pick that out and say, you know, this is more DC than it is Pennsylvania. And I really did feel like that, because it's like, dude, I've never seen negative things about like to the even seeing these headlines about John Fetterman were too much. So I was wondering where this was coming from. Like, I was instantly in my head, I'm like, oh my God, the Democrats are trying to take him down. They're trying to take him down because they don't want him to have a chance. And I begged this. I've said, Democrats, do not do this. You do not have a good person to put up right now. I do not care who you think you have. You are tone deaf to the public. So because I am a part of the public, I'm telling you right now that you don't have anybody to put up on your side. So please don't totally dismiss John Fetterman. But let's see. Right now, Selena Zito thinks it's more DC than Pennsylvania. Let's hope she's right. So switching gears, Mark Penn on the business of polling. Shout out to Bill O'Reilly. Shout out to you, Bill. We love Bill O'Reilly over here on this channel. Let's take a listen.
All right, latest Harvard-Harris poll, run by our pal Mark Penn. Fair poll, 2,286 registered voters. That's a big crew. Okay? Favorability of Donald Trump as president, approve 48, disapprove 46. Right or wrong track of the country, right track.
Okay, let me see something here. Back a little bit. I'm gonna read these slow, guys, so we can see them.
Favorability of Donald.
The Harvard Harris Expo. Do you disapprove of the job Trump is doing as president? So they're asking, do you disapprove? ? 46% said they disapprove. 48% said they approve. Very close. Rounded off, both 50%.
Donald Trump as president, approve 48, disapprove 46. Right.
Do you think the country is